Every May, millions of American gardeners walk into a garden center and spend money on plants they are going to throw away in October. Not because the plants died, because they didn't know those plants were going to come back. Perennials are the single best investment you can make in a garden. Plant once, and they show up every spring without you lifting a finger. Today, I'm counting down 10 of the most beautiful perennials you can put in the ground this month, right now in May, with everything you need to actually grow them. One of them is a plant most Americans buy fresh every single year without realizing it comes back on its own. I'll get to that one. Let's start the countdown. By the end of this video, you will have 10 perennials that come back every year, handle the full range of American summers, from Zone 3 Minnesota winters to Zone 9 Texas heat, and give you color from May all the way through September. I'm going to give you the zones, the planting depth, the spacing, the rookie mistakes that kill these plants in year one, and the one thing you can do with each of them right now in May to set it up for years of success. Plant any 3 of these this month, and your garden looks completely different by July. If you are new here, this channel is built around growing things that actually work in American gardens. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Now, let's get into the list. 1. Black-eyed Susan. We start with the most forgiving, most reliably American perennial in existence. Black-eyed Susan is a native wildflower. It grows wild across roadsides and meadows from the East Coast to the Great Plains. It was here before we were, and when you plant it in your garden, you are not introducing something foreign. You are bringing something back. The flowers are gold and deep orange with a dark brown center, and in morning heat they smell faintly of honey. The stems are slightly rough to the touch. It blooms July through September, which means it carries color when most spring flowers are already done, and your garden needs it most. My grandmother had a row of these along the driveway every summer. I never thought anything of it. I just thought that was what you grew. It wasn't until I found them coming back in a spot I had completely forgotten about that I realized they were never going anywhere. Old-timers didn't replant these every year. They didn't have to. Zones 3 through 9, one of the hardiest perennials on this list. Full sun, average to poor soil is good enough. Rich soil makes it floppy. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. Plant the crown at or just below soil level. You plant it too deep and it rots over winter. Leave the seed heads standing in fall. Goldfinches eat them all winter. One of the few perennials that rewards you for doing nothing. Here's the bonus on this one. Black-eyed Susan self-seeds prolifically. By year 3, you will have more plants than you started with. Dig divisions in early spring. Move them anywhere you want color. Give them to neighbors. Plan for this generosity from the start rather than fighting it. A gardener who plants 1 black-eyed Susan in May often has 10 by the 3rd spring. That is a return no annual can match. May is not just a good time to plant perennials. For several on this list, it is the only window that sets them up correctly. Miss it, and the plant survives, but never quite reaches what it could be. 2. Coneflower. Coneflower is native to the American prairie. It evolved on the same land most of us are gardening on right now. Drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, and a magnet for every pollinator you want in your yard. It blooms June through August and gets better every year it is in the ground. Most people only know the classic purple, but echinacea now comes in white, yellow, orange, red, and deep coral. The standard purple species, Echinacea purpurea, is the most drought-tolerant and the most reliably perennial of the group. Newer hybrids are showier but less forgiving. If you want something that comes back confidently for a decade, start with the purple. A May transplant gives coneflower 6 to 8 weeks of mild weather to settle its roots before a U.S. summer arrives in force. That establishment window is the difference between a plant that blooms its first season and one that sits and sulks until the following year. Most people cut coneflower down in fall. Don't. The seed heads are architectural through winter, dark, sculptural, interesting in the frozen garden, and goldfinches will strip them bare by January. That is free bird activity in your garden from November through February, powered entirely by a plant you almost cut down. Zones 3 through 9. It grows well in the full sun and well-drained soil. Wet winter soil is the main killer. Make sure you have drainage. Space plants 18 to 24 inches apart. Deadhead through summer to extend bloom. Stop in September and let the seed heads form. Divide every 3 to 4 years in early spring. Plants that stop blooming are usually overdue for division. The bonus here is historical. The medicinal reputation of Echinacea is genuine and goes deep in American history. The roots and above-ground parts have been used in traditional medicine for centuries, particularly by Great Plains native tribes for wound treatment and respiratory illness. It was one of the most widely used medicinal plants in 19th century American frontier medicine. Growing it puts you in a continuum of American plant knowledge that goes back long before garden centers existed. 3. Daylily. There's a reason it is Theo0 most widely grown perennial in America. Daylilies are tough in a way most garden plants simply are not. Adaptable across almost every U.S. zone, unfussy about soil, tolerant of drought once established. Each individual flower lasts only one day, hence the name, but a mature clump produces dozens of buds over weeks of bloom in June, July, and August. Every gardener I know has daylilies somewhere. Most of them inherited them from a neighbor who divided a clump and handed it over the fence, from a parent who had them along the back of the house for 30 years. From a house they bought where someone had a row along the driveway that nobody planted in living memory. Daylilies travel through communities like stories. They move from yard to yard and generation to generation. There are daylilies growing in abandoned farmhouse foundations, decades after anyone tended them. They do not need perfect conditions. They need to be planted. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun to partial shade. It grows well in almost any soil, not fussy. Plant the crown 1 inch below soil surface. Space 18 to 24 inches apart. Divide every 3 to 5 years and overcrowded daylily stops blooming. For variety guidance, over 80,000 registered cultivars exist. For reliability, Stella de Oro for small spaces, Happy Returns for long bloom, Hyperion for fragrance. Older varieties consistently outlast newer fancy doubles. The bonus on daylilies, the flowers are edible. Young buds and open flowers are used in Chinese cooking, sautéed, stuffed, or added to soups. The flavor is mildly sweet and slightly vegetal. In Chinese cuisine, the dried buds, called golden needles or lily buds, are a standard ingredient in hot and sour soup. 4. Perennial Salvia. If you want a perennial that earns its space from May through October, Perennial Salvia is as close to a sure thing as this list gets. Deep blue to purple flower spikes. Drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, and one of the top hummingbird plants in North America. The tubular flowers are sized exactly for hummingbird beaks, and in midsummer, a mass planting of salvia becomes a hub of constant activity. If you have ever watched a ruby-throated hummingbird work through a row of salvia flowers, you know what I am talking about. The most widely sold perennial salvia is Salvia nemorosa. May night is the most cold hardy, reliable in Zone 4, and blooms earlier than most. Caradonna has the darkest, most elegant stems and holds its structure beautifully. In Zones 7 through 9, Salvia gregi, Texas sage, is the better choice. More heat-tolerant, evergreen in mild winters, and blooms almost continuously in warmer climates. Here's the one thing that makes or breaks salvia's performance: the cutback. After the first flush of bloom, usually June, cut the plant back by 1/3. Not all the way, about 1/3. It will rebloom within 4 weeks and carry strong color through September. If you skip this step, salvia blooms once, looks spent, and sits green and uninteresting for the rest of the summer. Zones 4 through 9. Full sun, well-drained soil, drought-tolerant once established. Space 18 to 24 inches apart. A May plant of Salvia nemorosa will open its first flower spike by June. Cut it back after that bloom for a full second flush in August. The bonus: the word salvia comes from the Latin salvare, to heal. The genus has been used medicinally across cultures for thousands of years. Culinary sage, Salvia officinalis, belongs to the same genus. Growing it in your border means growing something with a history that predates most of what we call horticulture. 5. Columbine. Most of the perennials on this list bloom June through September. Columbine blooms April through June. It is the bridge. The gap between spring bulbs finishing and summer perennials taking over is one of the most common problems in American gardens. Columbine fills it. The flowers are extraordinary, nodding, spurred, almost architectural. They look like something a craftsman designed rather than a plant grew. They come in every combination of purple, pink, red, yellow, and white. Native species like Aquilegia canadensis, the red and yellow native columbine, grow wild in the eastern woodlands and on rocky outcrops from Canada to Georgia. Columbine is one of those flowers that feels like it belongs in an old garden, like it has always been there. Cottage gardens always had it. Front porches always had it. It naturalizes, self-seeds freely, and never quite leaves once it is established. It just keeps quietly showing up. For a plant that returns reliably for years, choose the native species over the hybrid.
Aquilegia canadensis is the most drought-tolerant, the most cold-hardy, and the most genuinely perennial of the group. European hybrids like the Macana series are showier but shorter-lived, 2 or 3 years at best without reseeding. The native species reseeds so freely it effectively perpetuates itself forever.
Zones 3 through 9, full sun to part shade, well-drained soil, tolerates dry shade better than most flowering perennials, spaced 12 to 18 inches apart. Plant in May for next spring blooms. Expect the wait. Individual plants live 3 to 5 years, but self-seed so freely, the planting perpetuates itself. The bonus. Columbine foliage is attractive long after the flowers are gone. Blue-green, finely cut and elegant through the summer. After bloom, cut the flower stalks to the ground but leave all the foliage. The leaves stay presentable right through fall and suppress weeds quietly. Most gardeners cut the whole thing back after bloom and miss 3 months of useful foliage. There is a plant coming up in this countdown that most American gardeners buy every single year as an annual. It is a perennial, has been the whole time. It is not far off now. 6. Shasta Daisy, clean, classic, and unmistakably American. White petals, bright yellow center, long stems. It looks like summer in a single flower. Shasta Daisy blooms June through August and makes some of the best cut flowers in the perennial garden. Here's something most gardeners do not know. Shasta daisies perform better the more you cut them. Cutting for the vase stimulates the plant to produce more buds. A plant you harvest from consistently will outlast and outbloom one left completely untouched. If you want more flowers, cut more flowers. For zone selection, variety matters. Becky is the most heat tolerant, critical if you are in zone 7 or above. Alaska handles zone 4, winters, reliably. Snowcap stays compact at 12 inches and works beautifully as a front-of-border edging plant. Match the variety to your zone, not just what looks good at the garden center. Shasta daisies are short-lived perennials, typically 3 to 4 years without division. Divide them every other year in early spring to keep them vigorous. Plants that go undivided too long bloom less each season and eventually die out from the center. The division takes 10 minutes and resets the plant completely. Most gardeners skip this and then blame the plant when it declines. Zones 5 through 9, full sun, well-drained fertile soil. Unlike the drought lovers on this list, Shasta Daisy benefits from soil amendment at planting. Space 18 to 24 inches apart. Plant in May for same season bloom. Shasta Daisy foliage is semi-evergreen in zone 7 and warmer. The basal rosette stays green through winter and gives the plant a head start in spring. In all zones, do not cut the whole plant back in fall. Leave the basal foliage intact. Cut back only the spent flower stems. The gardener who cuts everything to the ground in October wonders every spring why their Shastas are slow. Leave the leaves. 7. Catmint. Catmint is one of the most underused perennials in American gardens, which is strange because it does almost everything right. Soft lavender blue flowers from May through September with one midsummer cutback. It is drought tolerant and deer resistant. It is also very much loved by bumblebees. A mass planting of catmint in full bloom looks like a lavender field. The soft blue-gray foliage and abundance of small flowers create a haze of color that softens harder structural plantings around it. The most widely available variety is Walker's Low, which, despite the name, grows 24 to 30 inches tall and wide. It is the workhorse of the group. Neither Walker's Low nor Fasten's catmint is the same as catnip. Nepeta cataria is a different plant, though cats do respond to both. If you plant catmint and find your neighbor's cat rolling in it, now you know why. This is a secret. Cut catmint back by half immediately after the first bloom in June or July. It reblooms within 3 to 4 weeks and carries strong color into October. Most gardeners watch their catmint go floppy after the first flush, do nothing, and wonder why it stopped performing. One hard cutback is all it takes. Zones 3 through 8. Full sun to light shade. Well-drained soil. These ones resent wet feet. Space 24 to 36 inches apart. Plant in May, and it may bloom its first season. Gets significantly better every year for the first 4 or 5. Catmint does multiple jobs quietly in a perennial border. Dense mounding growth suppresses weeds. The aromatic foliage repels aphids. The flowers attract bumblebees at rates that benefit everything around it. Plant it at the front of a border and let it work. 8. Yarrow. Yarrow grows wild along roadsides and in dry meadows across nearly the entire United States. It evolved in poor, disturbed, dry soil. It does not want your compost. It does not want your fertilizer. Give it average to poor, well-drained soil and full sun, and it will not stop blooming from June through September. The flat-topped flower clusters come in yellow, white, red, and pink. The foliage is feathery, finely cut, and smells faintly medicinal when you crush a leaf between your fingers. The whole plant has a quality of resilience you can see from across the yard. It stands upright in heat, in drought, in conditions that make other perennials look beaten. Yarrow spreads by both seed and underground rhizomes. In rich, heavily amended soil, it can be aggressive. In average to poor soil, it moves at a manageable rate. Plant it where it has room, or divide it every 2 to 3 years. The divisions establish immediately. More free plants from a plant that was always going to give you more than you started with. Plant yarrow where nothing else wants to grow. It will thrive there. Zones 3 through 9. Full sun only. Average to poor, well-drained soil. Rich or wet soil causes flopping and root rot. Space 18 to 24 inches apart. Plant in May. Expect bloom by midsummer the first season. Yarrow holds its color exceptionally well when dried. Cut stems at peak bloom and hang in bunches upside down in a warm, dry location for 2 weeks. Yellow varieties dry truest to color. Reds and pinks fade towards salmon, but stay beautiful. Dried yarrow holds its structure for months and works in arrangements long after the garden is dormant. And the name, Achillea, comes from the legend that Achilles used yarrow to staunch wounds on the battlefield at Troy. It has been used continuously in folk medicine across Europe and North America for 3,000 years. A plant with that story growing along your fence line. One plant left. And it is the one from the very beginning. The plant most American gardeners buy as an annual every year without knowing they didn't have to. 9. Marigold, Tagetes. Here's where most gardeners do a double take. Marigolds are perennials. Not the common annual bedding marigolds most Americans buy every May. Those are Tagetes patula and Tagetes erecta, warm season annuals that die at first frost. But Tagetes limoni, Mexican bush marigold, is a true woody perennial, native to the mountains of Mexico and southern Arizona. In zones 8 through 11, it grows 3 to 5 feet tall, blooms almost continuously from fall through spring, comes back reliably every year, and fills the garden with a strong, citrusy fragrance that stops people mid-stride. It is deer-resistant, drought-tolerant, once established, and most Americans have never heard of it. For gardeners in zones 3 through 7, where Tagetes lemony won't overwinter, the annual marigolds are still among the best companion plants you can grow in a vegetable garden. They suppress soil nematodes, deter aphids and whiteflies, and attract beneficial predatory insects. Even where they don't come back, they earn their space every season. But in the right zone, zones 8 and above, you have been throwing away a perennial every October. You never had to. You can grow Tagetes lemoni in zones 8 through 11 as a perennial, annual marigolds, zones 2 through 11 as warm season annuals, full sun, well-drained average soil, space Tagetes lemoni 3 to 4 feet apart. It becomes a substantial shrub. In all zones, May is the right planting window. Soil is warm, frost risk is past, the plant has the full summer to establish. The bonus, marigold flowers are edible and used as a natural food dye across multiple cultures. Petals are used in teas, salads, and as a saffron substitute in cooking, common in both Indian and Mexican cuisine. The yellow and orange pigments are also used commercially to intensify the color of egg yolks and poultry skin, a garden flower with an industrial food use. Most people in the U.S. have never connected to the plant they grow every summer. 10. Peonies, the plant I mentioned at the very start, the one most American gardeners buy every May and throw away every October without realizing it comes back. It is peonies. Every spring, gardeners spend good money on a potted peony in full bloom. They enjoy it for 2 weeks. The flowers fade. The plant dies back in summer heat. They assume it is done. They pull it. They compost it. And the following May, they buy another one. A peony is not a 2-week plant. It is a 50-year plant. There are peonies growing in American gardens right now that were planted before the Second World War. Still blooming, still coming back, still producing flowers that stop people on the sidewalk. The woman who planted them is long gone. The peony did not notice. Plant one correctly this May, and you may be planting something that outlives you. That is not a metaphor. That is just what peonies do. Here's the most important thing about planting peonies. Getting this wrong is why thousands of American gardeners have a non-blooming peony in their yard right now. Plant the eyes no more than 1 to 2 inches below soil surface. And the eyes are the red buds on the crown of the plant, 1 to 2 inches deep. That is it. Plant the crown 3 inches deep and the peony grows leaves every single year and never blooms. It does not complain. It does not die. It just refuses to flower quietly, indefinitely, because it is waiting for conditions that never come. Correct the planting depth and it blooms the following spring. It was never broken. It was just too deep. Peonies die back to the ground completely in fall. New gardeners see this happen and assume the plant died. It did not. It went dormant. The roots are fully alive underground, building energy for spring. This is what peonies do every year. The plant is waiting. And the ants. Yes, ants crawl on peony buds every spring. Most gardeners notice and worry. The buds produce a nectar that attracts ants, and the ants help open the tightly packed blooms. They are doing work for you. Do not spray them. Zones 3 through 8 require cold dormancy. Struggle in zones 9 and above without a genuine cold winter. Full sun, minimum 6 hours. Fertile, well-drained soil. Amend with compost at planting. Space 3 to 4 feet apart. Spring-planted peonies may not bloom in year 1. This is normal. They are building roots. Year 2 shows you what the plant is capable of. Install a peony ring or wire support in early spring before stems get tall. Far easier than trying to support a flopped plant after the fact. One of the most common May morning gardening regrets is a peony knocked over by rain with no support in place. The bonus, cut peonies for indoor use at the marshmallow stage, when the bud shows color and feels soft and puffy but has not yet opened. At this stage, stems last 7 to 10 days in a vase. Cut them fully open and you get 2 to 3 days. Most people cut too late. Cut early and you get a full week of one of the most extraordinary flowers any American garden produces, from a plant you will never have to buy again. Here's the full list one more time. 1. Black-eyed Susan. 2. Coneflower. 3. Daylily. 4. Perennial Salvia. 5. Columbine. 6. Shasta Daisy. 7. Catmint. 8. Yarrow. 9. Marigold. And at number 10, peonies. Every one of these comes back every year. Everyone works across a wide range of American zones. And everyone gives you something different. A different bloom time, a different color, a different job in the garden. And so that if you plant even 3 or 4 of them, you have color and structure from April through September. That is not an accident. That is a garden designed to keep going without you fighting it every season. Plant any 2 of these this month, come back to this list in fall, and add 2 more. By next May, you will walk outside and find things already coming back. Things you planted, not things you bought and replaced, things that stayed. That is a different feeling. That is what perennial gardening is actually about. If this list gave you something useful, subscribe. This channel covers what actually works in American gardens every week. You do not want to miss what is coming.